There are a few things more exciting in cruising than trying out a brand new cruise ship, and trying out a brand new cruise ship that has gone out of its way to break the mold. That was the experience I just had on the NCL Prima, and I was very fortunate that I got to have that experience with my favorite shipmate, my wife, the lovely Jenny B. We sat down a few nights ago to talk about our experiences on the NCL Prima, talked about our likes, our dislikes, and we even had an interesting conversation about why people book the cruises that they do. Why do they make their cruise booking choices? So excited to have the lovely Jenny B on this episode of the La Lita Loca podcast. Sit back, relax, and here is myself and the lovely Jenny B talking NCL Prima. So,
yes,
Jenny, we just got back from the NCL Prima.
We did. How exciting.
It was super exciting, and I wanted to pick your brain today specifically on what you liked and what you did not like about the NCL Prima.
Okay.
You want to start with your likes or your dislikes?
Let's start with dislikes. I like to get those out of the way.
Dislikes out of the way first. All right. Tell me something that you disliked about the Norwegian Prima.
So I didn't like the atrium so much.
Okay.
I think because someone had said, "Oh, doesn't it look like a mall?" And I couldn't get that out of my head, right? So, but it did have nice locations to sit on all the different levels.
Right. So do you think this idea of cruise ships looking like malls, it does bother you, or do you think there's first and foremost, I mean, do you like, most of the time when I go to the mall, I don't see like a live band or anything like that. So I do hear that. We hear that about other cruise ships also, but what they told us is that they were trying to go for a resort type feel where they were able to disperse the crowds, that kind of thing. It definitely wasn't your traditional cruise ship atrium.
Right.
Because it wasn't a traditional cruise ship atrium, how do you think that was negative? What do you think was negative about that?
I think that it just took a little bit to get used to it.
Yeah.
And listen, it's real hard for me to even say anything negative about Prima because I loved it.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to kind of figure out, some things that, all right, maybe they can do that a little bit better next time.
So would you prefer to see them like open it up a little bit? The one thing that was interesting to me is at one point I was on, so the bottom of the atrium is on deck 6.
Right, 6, 7, 8.
And then there's railing on deck 7, and then there's railing on deck 8. And at one point the band was playing on deck 6. And I was up on the railing on deck 8, and I couldn't see the band at all.
Right.
And so to me, I feel like if they're going to have that type of railing, then you got to open it up a little bit so that you can see something, right? Or just keep the whole thing closed off.
No, exactly. And maybe that's what I didn't really care for too much, is that if you were on 7 and 8, the band be playing down on 6, yes, you can hear it. And of course, you're going to get up and stand and see what you can see.
Yeah.
And then you don't see anything.
All you really see is like the backside.
It's like, here's a tease, come down to 6. And then that did happen. A lot of people were going down to 6 to go see the band. And then it became a little crowded down there.
Yeah, I think it's kind of indicative of a larger problem. They said very specifically they wanted to create small spaces where people would gather. Mm-hmm. But how do you get beyond making like the viral places? Like everybody probably wanted to be near the band, or everybody wanted to be in Sid Norman's.
Right.
It seems like when you have 3,000 people on a cruise ship, I don't know how you're going to be able to just say, okay, I want 70 people only to do this. I think that's their challenge, right?
Right. And just going back real quick to the band, what they could do, they have a really cool walkway that's see-through glass on the outside of the ship. Just do that on 7 and 8. Making it all, or even it's just that section of where the band plays.
Oh, just so that you can
so you could just see that.
Just look beyond it. Yeah. That would be kind of interesting.
That would be kind of cool.
But
getting back to the Sid Normans, I think unfortunately what happened on this sailing is that a lot of the headliners and big performances, I think they were canceled out, right? So I think what happened is They only had the summer show. So the only other entertainment was in Sid Norman's or in the lobby
Right.
or the atrium. And, people just wanted to see some live music. So, yeah, we're going to have a lot of lines.
It's wild. They did have some comedy in the main theater. They had The Price is Right. They had the Love and Marriage show. But again, if I'm choosing between, the Rumors album, the band and Sid Norman's, or like, the Love and Marriage show, I'm choosing that. So it's interesting. I heard a lot of people say maybe move that band that's in Sid Norman's to the larger theater. Maybe it
Absolutely.
loses some intimacy, but that could be
I mean, I
pretty
think you
interesting.
lose the intimacy, but then you also lose the lines
You get more
and
people to
guests
see it.
being
Yeah.
frustrated that they couldn't see some live music.
Yeah, we talked to a lot of people. What do you think the most, like, what frustration did you hear mostly from the people that we talked to?
It was the Sid Normans.
Like the
And
lines and
waiting
stuff?
to have to waiting online for an hour, and then they couldn't get a seat. Right, they would have to stand for the whole performance,
Yeah,
and that was a little frustrating for them. And some people didn't even get in.
standing room only.
Yeah.
Standing room. Okay, what's another dislike?
I think another dislike that I had for the NCL Prima was where the local was situated.
It was a big difference.
It was a big difference because on our past NCL sailings, it was always, it's kind of a cool late night hangout.
Yeah.
When you're done with the night, well, for us, coming out of the casino, the local's right there.
Yeah.
Right. So, where the location is now on the Prima is not even on the same floor
Right.
as the casino, and kind of tucked away a little bit. And I don't know if that they're doing that so just as a disbursement for different areas to eat, and you go in and you go out, so they can just kind of keep rotating, or cost saving. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I agree. So like the casino is on 6, and that is true. The most like the last few times that we cruised on Norwegian, we would gamble into the evening, and then we would go hang out and kind of recap the day, recap the evening in the local, and it's normally been on the same deck. So
Right.
on the Prima, casino's on deck 6, and then the local is on deck 8.
Mhm.
So it's really kind of, no big deal. It's just an elevator ride away, but it didn't really flow in the same way that it did go into and the other nice thing about the local on the other ships is it's still there above the big atrium.
Right.
And so if you got there in time to hear the band, or if you got there in time, there was still a lot of people milling around. Yeah, completely different.
Yeah.
And to me, the food aspect of the local was definitely de-emphasized. On the other cruise
Right.
ships that we've been on, it's really interesting looking spots to sit, and different types of tables and different arrangements of tables, and,
Yeah.
wood railing and all that stuff. This was just a boxy room with the same tables.
Yeah,
All kind
and I
of,
think that was the only place on the ship that the seats were very uncomfortable.
That is true. Out of all of it, we had a lot of great seating on this ship,
Mhm.
but the local was a little on the small side. And that was probably to accommodate, I guess, a lot of people. But yeah.
Yeah, but they, like on the other ships, and that could be too, right? Like that on the other ships here, it's late night eating or it's breakfast, and you're hearing live music a lot of times when you're eating there.
Yeah.
That maybe you don't really care about the food,
Right.
right? But now you're sitting there, it's quiet, and you're really kind of
You're
tasting
kind
that
of
food.
hyper focused on
Right.
the food. It's interesting. I don't know if it's a strategy to. I'm sure it costs a lot of money. So the local is Norwegian's 24/7 all inclusive restaurant, right? That's where you get the all inclusive food. And that's really their only place like that. It's either you can get room service basically 24 hours a day, or you can go to the local. And so it's probably a big food cost for them. And so maybe if it's not as nice, I'm not saying that's what they did on purpose, but maybe if it's not as emphasized, maybe maybe it saves them some money or something. I mean, we weren't really running to the local. Like we had one meal there, and we weren't that inspired to, go back. So yeah, the placement, and then again, maybe, how plain they made the local. Maybe it was a little bit of a turnoff. They've changed some things there too in food prep, that kind of thing. I don't know if that was for cost savings, but things like the chicken wings have changed and some of the sandwiches, and
Right.
they don't have chips anymore with their sandwiches.
No.
You can only get French fries, and so there's some changes there.
Yeah, and another thing with and this kind of goes with this one a little bit too, was the location of one of the main dining rooms.
Yeah.
Because of where they have the Haven elevators. I mean, it was a hike from that midship for people to get to one of the main dining rooms.
To Hudson's.
Yeah, to Hudson's. Commodore's was really nicely located on the casino level of 6. And but that other one was, whew.
Talking about the main dining room, we only ate there one night, and then
Right.
you started not feeling good the one night that we ate there.
Right.
Another challenge or complaint that I heard coming off that cruise ship is a lot of people didn't like the non-changing main dining room menu.
Right. And that's even in the Haven.
Yeah. So we did get to have the opportunity to have the dinner in the Haven, and they said that their menu is the same every night. Pretty big menus. I mean, there's a lot of food choices on it, and it would probably be hard to eat through that whole menu in 7 days.
Right.
But there is something maybe psychological about looking at the same menu choices every day. Again, part of our ritual is when we're trying to decide what we're going to do for dinner, we'll pull up the menu and, tonight might be escargot night, or tonight. There was no escargot on either of those menus. No escargot on the main dining room menu. No escargot on the Haven menu. I'm assuming if you went to Le Bistro, the specialty French restaurant, you could have got escargot. But to me, escargot is like one of those staples of cruising. And it was weird that way. So what do you think? Do you like this idea of just one menu for the whole cruise, one menu forever? Or do you like the changing menu concept?
So I think that with NCL, there is so many options and especially on the Prima, there was so many options of different inclusive meals that you can choose from.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was okay with it. I didn't, because like you said, we only went there one time.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you have the promotion of, specialty dinings, which they have a few of. So my thing is, if you do something good, I guess those are their best, dishes that they feel that they do well. They're easily prepared, and they can prepare them in abundance, right? To get people in and out of the main dining room. But if you're one that, really just visits the main dining room, because there are a lot of people that's all they're eating and that's it, I kind of feel it could get boring.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think that's it. If I ate that menu every night, I'd be struggling a little bit just to see that. I enjoyed the food that I had the night that I was in there. So if all the dishes were of quality or whatever, it might be okay. But it would feel repetitive, and I think it would lose some of that freshness that you feel sometimes going. But look, I haven't really been a main dining room person for the last year or so anyways, just because I don't like the time investment in the main dining room. So I'm always looking for faster eating options, because I'd rather fill my time. I've been trying to de-emphasize food a little bit on these cruises, just because if not, it's so easy to just eat a lot. And but yeah, so I'd rather have my schedule cleared up for shows or, time at the casino, that kind of thing. But so we got the location of the local, you got the weird atrium layout. Any other dislikes for this cruise ship?
I think for the NCL Prima, there was a little bit, and I'm not one to hang out by the pools or, sunbathe, all those good things. But I did hear that it was very hard to find spots. Even up in the Haven, there was not enough seating. So
yeah, it was funny. So I did the ship tour where I actually was filming, and I walked up on the main pool and I said, "Oh, here I am at the back pool." And then I realized, no, wait, this is the pool.
Right.
There was no back pool. This was the pool. And
there's a few though.
Yeah, it was tight. There, to be fair, on 8 they do have these 2 infinity pools, that kind of thing. But as for this to be a main pool for 3,000 people, like it butted right up against the bottom of the go-kart track. And then it was just inside this little enclosed area. There were, as you explored the ship, there was a lot of places to lay out, a lot of loungers, that kind of thing. But loungers close to the pool, there was not a lot of loungers close to the pool. And the day that I was up by the pool, it was on the sea day, the forced sea day, because we missed the port stop. There was a lot of people there.
There was
It did
not-
not look like a fun pool day experience.
No.
So yeah, so there was a little stage there. I guess that's where their entertainment staff would do whatever outside, and then the go-karts. And it was it was crazy. It was
Well,
crazy.
and I'm sure from the go-karts, maybe, that's not a nice smell either.
The cool thing is the go-karts are electric.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so the go-karts are electric, and this was the first time I really spent any time looking at the go-kart track and the go-karts. They're electric and they're quiet, and they were really neat. Now, do they need to take up as much real estate as they do? I'm sure that's a debate. It is a profit center for them. They're charging people $15 to go around on the go-karts. They have a fun interactive thing for people that are observing. They have like laser rifles that you can shoot at the go-karts. It's quiet. It's neat. Everybody that I talked to that rode the go-karts said that the go-karts were amazing. It was a really neat attraction. But then if you look at it in contrast with the pool area, you can see why there's some questions whether or not committing that much real estate to the go-karts, whether that's good or not, because they probably could have given a little more to the pool. However, I mean, there's not a lot of room on that pool deck. You immediately go into the buffet, you go into the Palomar specialty dining restaurant. So they're using all of that space, and they're just stacking the go-karts up on top of the buffet and on top of that specialty dining restaurant. So it may be, it may not matter that the go-karts are there because they've got other things on that deck that's squeezing that pool in. But yeah, the pool, I think that's a fair criticism for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
And then, of course, my one of not my favorite things to do was the cluster muster.
Yeah.
Right. That we go back to, pre shutdown and go back to, hey, this is how you put on your, that
Right.
live muster drill is painful.
Yeah. I mean, the safety presentation is super important. It's super important if you've never been on a cruise.
Mhm.
It's super important if you've been on 100 cruises. But what we're advocating for is that you do it in the most efficient way, where people have a good opportunity to get the information that you're trying to tell them, and also where they can find their muster station. And I continue to contend that one of the best things that came out of the shutdown was the reimagining of the muster process, where you still are requiring passengers to go find their muster station, where you're still providing all of the same good safety information to the passengers as you did previously, but now you were able to do it in a way that I felt was much more efficient. You could watch that video on your phone. You could go on your own and find your muster station, so you knew exactly where it was at. And you didn't have this big, hours worth of downtime on embarkation day, which is already stressful, while you're waiting for people to get their stuff together, everybody to show up at the muster station, the crew to, give the presentation, all of that stuff, all these loud announcements, that kind of thing. I agree with you. I did, I'm not going to not cruise Norwegian Cruise Line because of that. It's not something that I would skip Norwegian because of, but it's certainly not I don't think it's the best way to do the muster process. But I guess it's here to stay on NCL.
Absolutely. But they need to, give better direction on where people need to meet. There was some issues with where we were supposed to have our muster drill. But I think once people are back to getting used to it, it's going to be fine. It's going to be.
I don't know if it's going to be the same old
annoying
annoying
because
muster.
that's what you're in for, right?
Yeah.
Is it fine? No. If there's another way to do it and do it efficiently, then that's the way we should be doing it.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, I don't think everybody's going to go back to it, and obviously,
it's not going to stop us.
Whatever it takes to keep people safe, right? So even if it's an inconvenience, if for some reason they feel like that is the better way to keep people safe, then good for them. And we'll, of course, we're going to do whatever we're supposed to do. But yeah, it's a little annoying.
A little bit.
So those are your dislikes?
Those are my dislikes.
All right, let's move on to more positive conversation then.
All right.
What's the first thing that comes to mind that you liked when it came to the NCL Prima?
These are the things that I loved.
Okay.
I'm not even going to say liked.
Yes.
I absolutely loved overall NCL Prima. But the 5 things that I loved was the size of that cabin.
the cabin sizes.
I mean, they really gave good real estate and good thought into how they set up this cabin. It was so roomy.
Yeah.
And the bathroom was fantastic, down to even the balcony seats being so comfortable.
Exactly. It was so funny when we walked in that cabin. I think we both had that moment where we looked at each other and we went, "Did we book something special?
Is this a balcony?
Is this a mini suite, or is this something? Is it, because when of course, Jenny B, the travel agent here, there's all kinds of cabins on cruise ships, right? Even even inside the balcony genre or category or whatever, there's multiple kinds of balconies. And so a lot of times we get on these cruises, I don't know what we booked. And I'm like, well, did we book something bigger than
surprise,
just a regular balcony? And she's like, no, this is a regular balcony. And it was very spacious. There was plenty of room around the bed to be able to walk and go outside, go to the balcony. There was plenty of room on both sides of the bed to easily get in and out of the bed, which is sometimes a challenge. There was a lot of room between the couch and the desk area. And I thought there was ample storage. And then, of course, the bathroom was configured in a way. First, it had a big stand-up shower with a door.
Which was fantastic.
And it was pretty big. I mean, it was, I think, it was a really big shower. And then they left a lot of floor space in the bathroom so that when you were using the restroom, you had plenty of room there, too. So, yeah.
And a very large sink that you can put all your stuff out and still feel comfortable.
Yeah. And
I mean, it was big enough for us to be in there together.
I think in the shower, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But we both could have been in the bathroom at the same time. I think we could have both been in the shower at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Which is not always true for cruise showers. The other thing I liked about the cabin, if I can tell you one thing, is I like the decor. Like, it was very, the art was modern, and then the colors were very kind of muted. But, again, they told us they were going for this resort type feel. And I like that. I'm not offended by this move to go to a resort type feel.
No way.
I think it's interesting to say I want to change the thought process around cruising. Cruising doesn't have to mean that we're just going to pile together in every activity. Right. That it can be a little more, because me, it's great to meet people, but I prefer my cruising to be a little more intimate, a little more one-on-one instead of doing stuff in mass. So. Those cabins definitely felt you still obviously you knew you were on a cruise ship, you knew the balcony was there, you could see the ocean, but it did almost start to feel a little more like a resort type room than just a really boxed in.
It was ocean
cruise cabin. Yeah, it was nice. It was nice.
Really nice.
Really nice.
My second thing that I loved is everywhere that we went, the seating was super comfortable.
Yeah.
I think that they really did a great job on comfy chairs and big chairs and, all the way down to into the theater.
Yeah.
There was nice chairs in there, and I think they hit it for the comfy chair.
The theater was really interesting. It's a theater. I've only seen another theater like this on Virgin Voyages where the actual main seats would retract, almost like bleachers at like a high school gymnasium or something. They could remove those seats, they could retract them, and turn that whole theater into a big dance floor, which is what they did after the Donna Summers thing. And then that's what happened down on deck 6. Now, when you came in on deck 7, they had almost like a balcony element with bench seatings. We had a really good time. There's like they had some bar seats, they had some bar tables, they had some bench seating, and then the auditorium type chairs, the arms would go up in between them, I believe. We definitely saw that happen. So. We saw that happen on one chair.
All the way down on 6.
All the way down on 6, where you could manipulate the arm rest in between two chairs and lift it up. So that actually, a lot of these auditoriums you go into, these cruise theaters that you go into, it's fixed seating where you got to squeeze in between the armrest if that's what you have to do. And so the option to be able to lift up the armrest was really made that theater a lot more inviting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool.
I'm going to go now to the next thing that was wonderful was the decor on the entire ship.
Yeah.
Everywhere you looked, everything was just so beautiful. Like glass vases and just very unique art.
Yeah.
throughout the whole ship.
There's a lot of good artwork, and then I didn't notice it until I did the ship tour. And make sure you guys check out the ship tour. There was a sculpture garden on the side of Deck 8, and apparently at night they light that sculpture garden up. So there's already something on my bucket list when I go to the Viva, or if I go back on the Prima. We got to go figure out what the deal is with that sculpture garden. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think also they did nice little touches, right? Like on the outside of the ship, the walls had some kind of what would you call
It was
that?
like textured. I mean,
Yeah, textured instead of just being steel.
like a metal, outside of a ship.
Yeah.
They put a lot of money into the decor. And again, there were so many little pieces of art too. Out in front of Los Lobos, there was a whole, like, I would say it's like 50 shadow boxes of little, I don't even know, maybe ceramic art pieces. And then even in the buffet, they had pots, and they had all kinds of interesting stuff. So a lot of money was spent on art on that cruise ship. Yeah, I would agree with you. I really enjoyed the decor. It was all subtle and muted. Now, sometimes I like a loud cruise ship. I like a loud nautical, pink, purple, taupe, not taupe, that's brown, but pink and purple and the fuchsia. That's what I was trying to think of. Sometimes that's great on the high seas, but it was very chill I think it was a very chill vibe. And they used a lot of blues, which I don't know if you guys know, but they used a lot of
Might
blues.
be one of Tony's favorite.
But I quite enjoyed the blue aesthetic on the Prima also.
I agree.
Beyond the decor, what else did you love?
Beyond the decor, I loved the little touches that I saw around the ship, right? A lot of times, and it was funny because one of our friends has said, Jen, you got to find this out for me. How come cruise ships do not have trash bins around? And, it's the truth. You don't have it around. So then, of course, that's when you see little things on the floor everywhere.
Yeah.
I loved the fact that at every elevator, there was a trash bin.
Yeah.
Right. And there was also room for you to leave your empty glasses or throw out your trash.
It was so smart. Like I don't think I've ever seen, now I'm going to start looking more for trash cans on cruise ships. But true, inside these elevator banks, it would be about midway down the wall. There would be a cutout square, and there would be a trash can, and then there would be plenty of room on each side for people to deposit glasses that they needed to be collected and brought back. So many times we've been on cruise ships where you get in the elevator and somebody's just left their glass on the elevator, or just in the hallway, or just on the floor somewhere. I think that was a really smart move. And, talking about elevators, the elevators are kind of nice too. What was interesting is, they know that people are going to pile into the elevators. They use kind of like an art, a light fixture, this infinity looking into space type lighting in the back of the elevator. And it really made those elevators feel even bigger than what they were. So they had to, like you said, those subtle small touches, very, very apparent when you start looking on that cruise ship, even down to the carpet where they replaced the old fish carpet. NCL has this carpet that they normally use where there's fish on the floor and the fish are pointing toward the forward of the ship, the head of the fish. Well, now to keep the modern aesthetic there, they use triangles, but even down to the carpet, it was they were paying attention to the details.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. And then, of course, I loved the new way to eat on NCL with the indulge.
Right. Yeah. So I just put out this video about the indulge food hall. And just to clear up some questions, indulge is kind of a new innovative way to get food quickly on the Prima, and it's included food. They have breakfast, they have a grab and go there, and then they have lunch and they have dinner. This does not replace the buffet. No. They have a buffet. This does not replace the main dining room. A lot of people have asked, how does this compare to Virgin Voyages? Virgin Voyages, they basically, changed the buffet concept and they've done it a different way.
Right.
And then they've done away with the main dining room concept and they've done it a different way. This indulge is just an addition to the normal cruise stuff. So addition to buffet, addition to the main dining room. And I thought it was a great option. I really enjoyed the ease of that. I heard some complaints. Maybe there wasn't enough food selection. But, with each of the little food areas, I felt like you got 5 or 6 different choices. I ate there 3 or 4 times and never struggled to find, something to eat.
Right.
So
I agree. I think that, if it was the noodle bar, they had like, 6 options,
yeah,
and then they had probably about maybe 5 different areas.
yeah. I can't remember how many stations, but
Yeah, I
yeah,
think there was like 5 or 6.
yeah.
But I mean, great options.
Yeah. And it was interesting, even in the noodle area, when you think noodles, maybe you think just Asian noodles. They had, they also had Italian,
Right,
they had
right.
a variety of stuff. So it was,
And what
yeah,
I liked about that also, I was talking to one of the solo cruises, and at each different station, they have bar stools. So they would eat there and not feel like they were really alone, right? Because they
yeah,
would talk to the chefs, they would talk to the people that were, passing by. So I think they kind of nailed it on
yeah.
it, and there's another Starbucks there. I've heard little things about that Starbucks, but it was kind of nobody went there.
Is Starbucks coffee on one of the things that you loved about that ship?
Yes.
2 Starbucks. And now,
Two
yeah,
Starbucks.
2 Starbucks. And now they've, made a way that you can get unlimited Starbucks either on its own plan or you can add it to a plan.
Right.
That was nice. I'm usually not that excited about having a beverage package, but our beverage package this time included all the, water, sparkling water, and coffee that we could handle. And with 2 Starbucks on board, that was nice.
Well, and listen, it was a great deal.
Yeah.
To go ahead and do the upgrade.
Yeah.
So
the interesting thing about NCL, they have this thing free at sea, and inside of free at sea, you can get drinks at sea, but you have to pay the gratuities.
Right.
And so some people complain about that program saying, well, it's not really free at sea. But to me, it's one of the least expensive drink packages.
Absolutely.
So, what you're paying for the gratuities for a week's worth of alcoholic beverages is still a lot cheaper than what you pay on other cruise lines. Now, the big knock to that program is they don't necessarily include water. They don't necessarily include specialty coffee.
Right.
And so for even a little bit more, which still tends to be less than what you would pay for a drink package on, say, Royal or Carnival, still for less than that, you can get those things added. So that's one thing I like about NCL is they make it kind of easy to get that drink package and really give you some options for what you have with that drink package.
I'm just trying to figure out. So it came out to about $45 a day.
$45 a day for the add-on too, right? So for the free at sea and the add-on, they gave us the water and the coffee.
Right.
And canned sodas. Yeah.
That's correct.
So $45 a day seems really reasonable. Our coffees are $6 on the cruise ship. And so you have a couple coffees, you have a couple drinks, a couple sodas, a couple waters. All of a sudden you're at $45 a day. So, even if we don't hit the $45 a day, you're paying a little bit for a no hassle factor.
That's exactly it. Too. Yeah.
Get what you want whenever you want without counting the cost.
Well, listen, I was getting the mocktail of a Bloody Mary with extra olives. Boy, that was good.
It was good stuff. Yeah. The only thing, I wish they had the big olives. I tell you, I think they're called Queen olives, Queen green olives. That's my favorite. What else did you love on the NCL Prima, Jenny B?
I just loved it all.
You loved it all? So
that's it.
What
about you? What was your number one love of NCL? Well, let me go back to it. I love the fact that NCL is innovating. Is that the word? Like like a new way of cruising.
Yeah.
Right. It's very different from other cruise ships.
Yeah.
And I feel like on the inside of the ship, not so much maybe by the pools, that kind of thing, but they are definitely trying to disperse the crowd.
Yeah.
On the inside of the ship, I never felt crowded. I don't think that maybe on that last sea day because people didn't know what to do. They didn't have any plans.
Yeah.
Right. So everybody was just kind of walking around like, hey, what do I do now?
The interesting thing for us is the way that we cruise. So on the Prima, I think where people would have gathered up would have been places that we didn't, where you and I wouldn't gather up. So we're not going to wait an hour and a half to get into the comedy club. Yeah. Like we would look at that line and be like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Not doing it.
Same thing for Sid Norman's. I don't care how bad, how good the band is. I'm not waiting an hour and a half. I'm not taking an hour and a half out of my cruise just to go see the music. And everybody who does, no knock against that. That's just not what we would want to do. And so I think we were probably in places where there weren't a lot of crowds,
Right.
which, to be honest about that. I think the thing that I like most is I did like the modern aesthetic of the cruise ship. It was minimal, but it was rich at the same time. There was a lot of things to look at, a lot of things to appreciate. The flow was a little choppy. Again, I think they're trying to establish these small spaces. I was fascinated by how in some places they just let the form of the ship dictate what the place was going to be like. So Onda, for example, it was just a rectangle of a room.
Right.
That's it. Like they didn't do anything fancy. They didn't build any weird facades. They didn't poke any walls out. They didn't make any other booths that didn't fit. But what they did is they used modern art, modern architecture to really enhance that room. But if you stripped all that away, it would have just been some tables. It would have just been like a hall. It would,
Right.
And so I appreciate that about the ship. And then, some people were saying, how did the staff seem? Certainly the staff on every cruise that we've been on this year and into last year, they seem a little overworked. Like
Absolutely.
the casino staff, the day that we had to skip Great Harvest Key, Great Stirrup Key, they were supposed to have some time off. And so they just did a full sea day and then they were back up. And so, cruise staff, like no one else, works some crazy amount of hours for not the most amount of money. And so I can imagine them being tired and a little frustrated and a little overworked. And I know it's, their job to make us feel super duper special. But again, I'm okay if people that are working that hard aren't always overly special. Our room steward spoke to us every time we were in the hall.
Mm-hmm.
He was nice. He was pleasant. Anytime we needed something, he got something. He wasn't all over us, right? Which is not something that we want, not something that we're looking for. But we had plenty of interaction, I would say, with the room steward.
Absolutely.
Going to food places, everybody was pleasant with their service. Again, nobody's like down my throat asking me my life story, anything like that, but they were doing their job and they were doing their job in a pleasant way. And then they probably spent more time with the casino workers than anybody. And those guys were working their butts off.
They worked hard.
I felt pretty good about that. I've heard some criticism of this ship that, again, I think people who are diehard Norwegian fans, we're fairly new to Norwegian.
Right.
We probably have less than 10 cruises each on Norwegian. And so we're not diehard Norwegian folks at all. And so I think people that are used to what Norwegian has to offer, even in the last class of ship where the Joy and the Bliss and the Encore are, this is a completely different cruise ship than that. A lot of the same components are on those ships, but it is a different cruise ship. So I can imagine if you're used to something and you really like, say, the Bliss or the Encore or the Joy, and all of a sudden you get on this ship, you're like, oh, what happened here? So I could understand it. And then, the problem with both of us, and just to be transparent to everybody out there listening and watching, we tend to fall in love easy. And so, we're always, we're committed to looking for the positive, and we have to, really stretch hard, or some event would have to happen for us to look for the negative. So I think, take what we're saying with a grain of salt. We're people who fall in love easy, to the point where I'm trying to work it out from a business perspective. Like, well, this is the first year where people are actually on this ship. And so this went from a conception to, reality. And now they're doing all these surveys and, talking to all these people to find out what they can do differently. And so I tend to be gracious that way, that, I think they're going to have lessons learned here and do something different with the Viva. But I can certainly understand the people that are upset. And like, if I was a pool goer, I would be upset. Like, if I was used to going somewhere and always having good access to a pool and a lot of space on the Lido deck, and then all of a sudden I got on this ship, I'd be like, what the heck is going on? This is not working out for me as, somebody who likes the pool.
Well, and listen, I think that Virgin also got that same, at the beginning when they first came out. Oh, the pool, there's nothing there. Well, that's because they're giving you something else, right? Like, they're giving you other things to do on the cruise ship, and that wasn't their emphasis.
Yeah, that's what they're really trying to do, is challenge the norm of cruising. And it's a tightrope, right? Because the reason people are cruising is because they like the norm of cruising. They like what cruising is. And so you do run the risk when you're trying to present people with something new that you're going to turn some people off. And there's definitely some people we ran into that were turned off by the thing. But we run into some people too that were certainly turned on. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so
because a lot of them said, listen, we're in the Caribbean. I'm going to go to a beach day, so I don't really need the pool to lay out.
yeah.
So people find the good and the bad, right?
Yeah. There were some other interesting things that we really didn't partake in that I think were really interesting. The go-karts, for one, really cool. There was a lot of slides on this. There were 3 dry slides, and then there was an interesting water slide. And then also they had a kind of really neat looking putt-putt course. They had this outdoor dart game that you could play that kept score for you on real darts. They had a crazy big arcade, like all this virtual reality stuff, augmented reality, an escape room. They also had an outside space where you could play pickleball, and you could play foosball, and you could play weird ping pong, and you could play regular ping pong. You could play shuffleboard. So there was a lot to do there on the cruise ship. They had a really nice spa. They had a really nice gym. And so all the components were there. They were just probably packaged a little differently than what a lot of people were used to seeing them.
Right.
But I think there's definitely going to be a set of cruisers that this is going to be the right cruise ship for. We might be those cruisers, right?
Absolutely.
I think we're both looking forward to seeing what the Viva is like and going on the Viva. So, but I would recommend this cruise ship to anybody, but you have to go in a little bit with an open mind that you're going to get hit in the face with something different. And the challenge is going to be to find those things that you like and to tolerate those things that you don't like. But yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time. Also, just to mention briefly, this was a group cruise for us. So we hosted a little over 100 people. We had events on 6 of the 7 days. They were very, accommodating for our group to give us meet and greet spaces. We had a couple cocktail parties. We had a group coordinator on the cruise ship from Norwegian that worked with us to make sure that we were satisfied and that we had everything that we needed. And so for people out there that are looking to, book groups, and this is the interesting thing that I think is worth mentioning, you don't have to be somebody on YouTube to book a group.
Right.
If 15 or 20 people and you're going to cruise together, it may make sense for you to book a group because there's amenities and perks and things that you can get with groups that you don't get just on individual bookings. Of course, you have to work with a travel agent to do that. And I would recommend Jenny B, my favorite travel agent. But keep it in mind. And, Norwegian has been really good to us from a group's perspective, or really accommodating from a group's perspective. So if you're out there with a group of people and you're wanting to try something out, Norwegian might be a thing to try out too. It was true for us on the Encore also.
Yeah, get in touch with me.
You can get in the queue for Team Jenny by sending an email to jbarnett@expediacruises.com. And I'm sure the people are standing by to help.
Oh, yes, they are.
So that's a nice segue. It's a nice segue because I want to talk a little bit about why people choose the cruises that they are choosing. Jenny B is a travel agent. She's been in the biz since shortly after we started cruising. She got into it at 2018. She got her way through the shutdown. She knows everything about cancellations and rebooking and working with cruise lines. I think at this point you probably booked over 2,000 cruises, right?
I think so, yeah.
And the beautiful thing about working with a travel professional, you can book everything on your own. Honestly, you can do it through the through the website that the cruise lines put out there. But the cool thing about working with a travel professional like Jenny, who's booked over 2,000 cruises, you can get her expertise for free. And so it made me think today, as we're getting ready to have this conversation, why are people booking cruises in this day and age? Not just book cruises. I guess I'm not even saying it well. Choose cruises. Why are people making the cruise choices that they're making? Price is still probably a big factor, right?
Price is a big factor, but I think a lot of times it comes down to people's loyalty to a certain cruise line, and then they'll look at price, then they'll look at itinerary. But I think that the number one kind of thing that people are just used to what they're used to, right? They don't really want to, they want to get to be a diamond on Royal Caribbean, or, they enjoy that loyalty. I think a lot of people stick with what they know. But with a travel agent, it's nice, right? Because you call me up and just say you want to go Southern Caribbean. I'm going to give you all the choices that I have, right? So if you want to stay with Royal, yeah, that's what you have. And of course, we go through different, questions. All right, do you really want to stay on Royal, or listen, there's this great opportunity going on Princess.
Yeah.
Those sort of things. But I think their number one thing is probably loyalty. Price is definitely is a factor.
Can I ask you something about loyalty while we're talking about it?
Yeah.
So I have no idea what's in the loyalty perks. I would have to look it up. So do you think most people that are chasing loyalty, do you think they know what's at that top level?
Absolutely. They know what is at the end.
So I'm an outlier when it comes to that.
Absolutely, you are. Yeah.
So like when people call, they're like, I'm staying with Royal because I want to get to this level and I want to get to meet the president or whatever you get at the top level.
Exactly.
Is that what you get? Do you get to?
Oh, yeah.
Do you get to hang out with the president at the top level?
You're funny.
Okay, so price.
All right.
So you think loyalty is number one?
I think loyalty is kind of number one just because that's what people know.
So number two, do you think it would be price or itinerary?
I would think that the next thing is time of year and itinerary.
Time of year and itinerary.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people, kids are still in school, so I have to go in July and August. Or, hey, what's the best time of year if you're going to go to Alaska, what's the best time of year to maybe see the Northern Lights? So there's certain things that do come down to date.
Yeah. So itinerary. What else? So what's a weird reason that you've seen people book a cruise? Because they just have a promotion. They just want to get on any cruise and, hey, here's the promotion. You figure out when I can leave in a week. There you go. Yeah, because a lot of times cruise lines will run really enticing things like double points, that kind of thing. So do you think they'll catch wind of, the Royals running double points, so maybe this is the time I want to grind my Royal loyalty?
Yeah, because there's a lot of times, like NCL, sometimes there's triple points.
Wow.
So yeah, I think that if they see that promotion come through, they're going to be like, all right, get me on this before it ends.
Here's the other thing. I know sometimes you'll say that if I talk about something, and I know when I went to Australia on Holland America, all of a sudden there was more interest in Holland America.
Right.
Certainly there's a lot of new cruise ships out and a lot of marketing around cruise ships. I'm thinking really specifically about Royal Caribbean's Icon of the Seas, or really what Carnival's doing with the new like Luminosa or the Venezia, where they're rebranding stuff from an Italian perspective. Do you think those kind of marketing pushes also drive people to book those specific cruises? Did you have people like running to Icon as soon as it came out?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They were on a waiting list. Right. So, hey, Jen, when this comes out and you're ready to book, say it was like March 1st at midnight, I had a list of people, get me on that first sailing, or, get me on something in the inauguration season. So, yeah, as soon as a new ship is announced and it's available to book, people are booking it.
Wow.
And then there are people like that, that, hey, I want to go on every brand new cruise ship that's coming out.
There you go.
Get me on those. I don't know if his name is Tony, but
no, you get that request from me a lot.
I do. And what's good too is there's a lot of people. So, loyalty is important to people, but like the cruise line MSC, they match that.
Yeah.
One-time match. If you're a diamond, with Carnival, they'll match that to what is comparable within their loyalty program. So, that's a nice way to be able to try a different cruise line also.
Yeah, I think we're lucky because we live in Florida and there's like 5 cruise ports near us. But I also think there's people that I think they probably just book because they live near a cruise port. Absolutely. Like where I don't like to repeat a cruise ship. I think there's people out there that always cruise the same cruise ship just because it's right at their home port or something.
Oh, absolutely. I think people pick a certain cruise ship because of the embarkation port, where they're going to be cruising out of. I think that also, if your brother said, or my brother said, hey, I'm on this ship on this day, are we going to try to get on it?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I think a lot of people also do that, right?
Like because other people, like you got a whole like your
Right, and
aunts and family and stuff
yeah.
for doing something, and yeah, that's the interesting thing because we've even seen it with the group cruise. Like we were just on Norwegian, but there were people that have never cruised Norwegian, but they were cruising Norwegian because we were cruising
Right.
Norwegian. We're doing the same thing. We're going to go on somebody else's group cruise, you know, on a ship that we probably wouldn't normally cruise, right? But we're doing it just so that we can be with the people. So it's I think that's the coolest thing about cruising, and really, if this conversation speaks to anything, it speaks to the fact that there's a lot of different reasons to choose a cruise.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, what kind of comes down to it too, like for today, for instance, somebody had a next cruise certificate. Well, not certificate, but a next cruise, like deposit left on Royal Caribbean. So all she said to me was, I just want to go Southern Caribbean from, you know, March to May. And so I pulled everything up and it came down to price, right? There was a studio balcony for like half the price of what an interior was.
Oh, wow.
Which is wild, right? So we looked it up, and that's another thing, right? I looked it up on YouTube. This is what it looks like. I think it looks great. And, you know, we booked it.
Yeah.
So, and I think that goes back to a lot of reasons why to use a travel agent.
Yeah.
Right. It's super, and that too, people are booking cruises like when we run promotions, right? Like if there's extra onboard and, you know, onboard credit included, or, you know, those sort of things. So people will be like, oh, I want to take advantage of that, you know, book me on any of those cruises. But I think that's important to use a travel agent for that one reason. She's like, I don't even see that price on my end, you know? So, yeah. I think price is probably the number one thing now that you're saying it.
So we're certainly not trying to sell you. I do think that you should use a travel agent. We have a vested interest in you using a travel agent. Jenny B has her own travel business. And so, but all these things that we're talking about are the important things. If you don't use a travel agent, you can write those questions out yourself. Am I cruising for the price? Am I cruising for the itinerary? Am I cruising because I'm cruising with other people? Am I cruising because there's a promotion? We didn't even talk about the casino. Do I have a great casino offer? Sometimes that motivates people to go on a certain cruise ship. Am I cruising just because I want to see the newest cruise ship? So I think the big message to take away from it, two big messages. The first big message is there's a lot of options when it comes to cruising, and make sure that you're cruising for the reason why you want to cruise, or you run the risk of not having a good time. We've run into people that have gone on a cruise and they didn't have a good time, and it's because they didn't really work through the process of, why am I going on the cruise? Is this a cruise line for me? Is this a cruise ship for me? So I think that's important as a cruiser, as somebody that's spending your money on a cruise vacation. Make sure that you figure out why you're going on a cruise, and make sure you put some thought into the cruise that you are picking. Like if you're somebody who never likes to go out in the sun, maybe, you know, you don't want your one cruise a year to be to the Caribbean or something like that. Or if you hate the cold, you don't want your one cruise for the year to go to Alaska. So, you know, you got to work all that out. And, you know, sometimes working it out with a travel professional is the easiest way to do it, because they've got all those questions on lock in their head, and they've asked those questions and worked through those questions a ton. I would highly recommend using a travel agent. But, you know, the point of the conversation here is to do that work. And we'd love to hear
do your research.
Yeah, we'd love to hear some feedback from you guys. Why do you choose a cruise? That kind of thing. But good conversation today about the NCL Prima. Good conversation about why people choose a cruise. Jenny B, anything else on your mind while I got you here in the studio, while I got you on the podcast today? Anything else that you're thinking about talking about cruise wise?
I don't think I can think of anything other than, when are we going to Japan?
You want to go to Japan?
I want to. I saw a Trans-Pacific to Japan.
Yeah, Japan was pretty amazing. Of all the places that I've been, I think you would love it. So, well, let's keep our eyes open. Let's call the travel professional and see if we can get something for.
That's right. So, I don't know her number.
Jenny B, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having
this conversation.
I'm so excited. Thank you.
Like I said in the conversation with Jenny B, NCL Prima, they're doing it a different way. It is a cruise ship that I would recommend. Jump on that ship or one of its sister ships coming out, the Viva coming out next. If you're enjoying these video podcasts, you can get more. You can be notified when the newest one comes out by hitting the subscribe button. Show your support for this show by hitting the like button. And well, this is Tony for La Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.